Hello, it's Linda from Lányos Handmade, and today we're going to make these triangle zipper pouches. I'm going to make one with Fusible Fleece and one with ShapeFlex so that you can see the results and you can decide for yourself which interfacing you like better. I'm also going to talk about the top stitching and the 1/4 inch foot and the stitch in the ditch foot. I will leave in the notes what kind of materials you need to make one of these. And don't forget to leave me a comment if you have any questions, and I hope your project turns out successful. Oh yeah, and don't forget your coffee and your chocolate. Today I have Tim Tams. These things are excellent. So today we're going to make a triangle pouch. So what we need first off is 4 pieces of fabric. These are all 6 inches by 6 inches square. And so this is going to be used for my lining, and this is going to be used for my outer fabric. I've put interfacing on the outer pieces. This one's pretty heavy, so I don't need any interfacing on that. And this is going to be my strap. This strap is really tiny compared to what people are used to seeing because I want to make it so small that it'll fit into this. This thing is so small, I don't even know where I got it from. It's really well made, but you know, see a little lobster clasp there. It works really well. But I would have to be able to fit this into there. So I'm going to go and press it and make it as small as I can so I can try and run it through there. And then I can make a little lobster clasp handle on top of my triangle pouch. Now if you're making it and you want a proper handle, you're going to have to make it bigger. If you want to have a 1 inch wide strap, I usually cut 4 inches wide so that I can fold the same way. Fold 1 inch in on both sides and then fold it. And this will end up being 1 inch, of course. So 4 inches wide and 8 inches long would give me a nice strap. The only other things you need is a zipper, and I like having one that's bigger than my project. And, you know, I use Wonder Tape and clips all the time. So here's my zipper tape from my roll of zippers, and these are the leftover pieces, so they're a little bit frayed on the ends, so I might have to trim some off. And this is the zipper pull from it. We'll see how this slides on here. Looks like it's going to work okay. I might not have to do too much. Yeah, that's okay. I've done this before and I've pulled it on and I've pulled it, yanked it right off the other end here. So I just had to redo it. So what we're going to do is take it to the sewing machine and zigzag on this end and zigzag on this end so that this thing doesn't fall off anymore. Now, I always find these things are like making makeup pouches, except a couple of differences. One of them is if you're making a makeup pouch and you've got, you know, horses, animals, trees on them, you want to have the trees facing the zipper so that when the makeup pouch is standing up, the trees are standing upright. With these things, you want to make the trees go this way. So this is the top of the zipper, and this will be the top of your bag. So you want to make the trees stand this way. Although this is quite a small pouch, so I don't know how a big tree is going to look on it. With this striped fabric, it doesn't matter which way I have it, right? I could have it this way and have horizontal, or I could have it this way and have vertical. I'm just going to go for the vertical. But make sure your direction of the fabric, the design, the top is up here. And right now what we're going to do is we're going to sew on the 2 sides. So I'm going to start with this side. And you can use Wonder Tape. I'm not finding this is too bulky to sew with, so I might just clip it and leave it at that and sew it down with my zipper foot. This is a really wide zipper and I really like it, but it's just going to make the effect even better. So I'll sew this side on first and then I'll clip and sew the other side on. But right now let's start with this side. Okay? Now you can see I've sewed on this side. Now I can sew on this side. Line everything up. I always make sure it's lined up nicely here and here. And it's lined up here. And we shall clip it and then I'll sew it down here. I backstitched it on the ends, and my zipper is really wide. Yours might not be as wide, but you know, try and leave a little bit of space here so that you can have some of your zipper showing too. So both sides are sewn on. We have to put the lining on now. I like flipping it over and put my lining down. I have to figure out what's right side and what's wrong side. There. Put lining down, and what I like to do is, this is the way I want it to be, but I'm going to flip it up and I'm going to pinch it here. And that is where I clip it, because that's what I want to sew together next. If you take a look, see here, this is what it's going to end up looking like. So let's sew this together. So we've got our lining on this side. Let's put our lining on the other side. This is how I want it to look. So I'm just going to flip it over and pinch this edge together and sew this edge. Let's put some clips in it to hold it. So we've got our zipper sewn on. We've got our lining sewn on here. And I'm going to go press this so I can come back and top stitch. I've got 2 feet to choose from here. This is a stitch in the ditch foot. If I move my needle to the left, then I end up with 1/8 of an inch along there. This one has a guide over here and it's a 1/4 inch, so if I run the guide along here, I will get a 1/4 inch stitching line. So for now I'm going to go press this and then come back and top stitch it. Now I'm ready for top stitching, and I just wanted to let you know that I always pin this when I'm top stitching so nothing slips. So I'm making sure that I'm getting a good top stitch right in there. Okay, so, oops, see, a little bit of bump. I don't like the bump. So it's nice and flat, it's stretched as much as it can, and I can sew without getting tangled up in anything. There, I don't know if you can see that, but I've got my top stitching done and my pins taken out. So I just want to remind you that if you don't have a stop at the top of your zipper, now's the time to actually put one in, because it's easier to make this with a zipper stop in it. I put one in already because this was zipper tape. But if you don't have one in your zipper, now's the time to sew one just above here to hold it all together. Now we're going to move on to our strap. And if you want a 1 inch wide strap that goes around your wrist, remember you're using a piece that's about 8 inches long and about 4 inches wide, because I'm going to take this to the iron and I'm going to fold it in half and press it, and then I'm going to fold the edges in to the center and press it, and then I'm going to fold it over and press it again. And that way you're going to get a really nice strap for yours. I'm making it really small because I want it to fit into this lobster clasp. So I'm using this teeny skinny little piece of fabric and hoping that I can shove it in here. I'm going to just sew down afterwards on one side and slip it through. But I'm going to press this first, and then we'll come back and sew it. So I managed to press this one, and hopefully it's small enough to fit in here. Yeah, it looks like it will be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew just down the one side here to keep it all together, and then I'll slip this on. If you want to see what a proper sized one looks like, this is what I was talking about. This is 4 inches wide, and I pressed it with the iron in half, and then I pressed the 2 edges in, and then I folded it and pressed it. So this could be a proper wrist strap. Of course, this one's much longer because it's a bag strap, but I do them the same way. If you want, you can measure it before you sew it on. Put a little marking, a chalk mark maybe, or pins or something, so that you know how big you want to have it. I usually make them about 8 inches. Let's see just by feel what this one is. Yeah, this one is 6 inches. So that makes it comfortable. So about 1/2 inch would be under here, and the rest of it I could slip my hand through. I might even take some back again because that, see, it feels a little bit big. So let's try 5. That's 5 inches, missing 1/2. Yeah, that's good. There. Edge stitching there, hold it all together, and I'm going to slide this on. Actually, I did the edge stitching on both sides just because I had to have it uniform. And I'm going to slide this little lobster clasp on, and now we can sew it onto our triangle pouch. So we're going to stitch our little handle onto our triangle pouch. And if you have a proper size wrist strap, you'll put it on the same way. You just obviously will be longer than my little one here. I'm going to make this stick out maybe 1 inch. Put it 1.5 inches because then I can have 1/2 inch seam allowance and still have 1 inch left over showing. Okay, now the next important thing is don't sew it to your lining. Just sew it to your outer fabric. Okay, and then when it's all sewn together, it'll stick out like this. So I'm going to go over to the machine and just base this down a little bit. Maybe I'll stick a little box on here so it'll hold into place, but I'll stay inside the 1/2 inch seam allowance. So here it's sewn on. Remember with me, I've got extra long here because I didn't want to fiddle around with a piece that was too short. With you, you're going to have a wrist strap perhaps, and you'll have the 1/2 inch seam allowance, and your wrist strap will extend down here. Okay, I've just got the short stubby thing, and I certainly don't need all this extra, so I'm going to cut it off right now. Now this is the point of no return. This is where we realize that we're making a triangle pouch and not a makeup bag. So we're going to put the 2 outer layers together. We're going to pin the bottoms, which won't be the bottoms by the time we're finished, but we'll pin these, make sure they're all lined up. And we're going to put the 2 lining layers together, just the bottoms, and we're going to pin them, make sure they're all lined up. And we're going to sew the bottoms only. I use a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Back stitch on both ends when you're sewing to keep it tight. So now I've got my 2 bottoms sewn up. You'll notice this is a pretty goofy looking thing. Here's the top where your wrist strap or my little lobster clasp is. I'm going to open up my zipper just a bit. That's the top. And on the bottom, we're going to line this up. Everything like this. I'm going to open these up because I like having these things open, a little less bulk. So I have my seam, my zipper, and my seam lined up. And I'm going to pin those. Hopefully I can get a pin through there to hold them in place. And then I'm going to pin over here too to hold this in place. Bent pin. And the other side. Now I'm going to sew 1/2 inch seam allowance from one end to the other. I'm going to back stitch on the corners here, and I'm going to be careful going over the zipper, but I'm going to do it a couple of times over the zipper back and forth to hold it. That's a pretty tough spot. Okay, it's all sewn on now. I forgot to tell you, it's always nice to have your zipper pull just up a bit from here because you don't want to run over your zipper pull. And I also forgot to tell you that if you have a metal zipper, be really careful driving over top of it because you could break a needle on that for sure. So let's cut off this excess here. Again, with the plastic zipper, it's easy to take off. Okay, now you can clip off some of these bulky corners if you like. And we're going to work on the other side. This side was this, and this side's going to be this. We're going to sew our outer layers together here. Just pin them. Everything's matching up. And then we're going to sew, I should stick a pin in here because this is kind of floppy. I'm matching up everything. So we have pins all through this side, and on this side we're going to stick pins too, but we're not going to sew it all because we have to have an open hole so we can turn it. So my teeth are lined up and they're facing my lining. And the bottom I'm going to pin too. And we're sewing up this side and an inch in here and an inch down there, and leave that open so we can turn it. So let's sew that top. So there you can see I've sewed it. When I was coming around here, it felt not straight, obviously, because these ends are being pulled back by this. So I come up and it's a curve, and I stopped. And then I continued over here. I did stitch 2 rows just to reinforce it. Now we can clip our corners here, and we can clip our zipper off. Now the last thing to do is turn it. It's kind of a small hole to be sticking all this through. That's why the back stitching helps hold it. If you do pop any of those stitches on the side, you can hand sew them in later. Now I'm going to get my little pokey thing, and I'm going to poke these corners out. Now I poked out the corners on the outer layer, and I can poke out the corners on the lining. The only thing is, first I'm going to check and see if I've made any boo-boos in here, anything needs fray check. Before I seal it off, I want to make sure it's good. This is where I'm going to seal it off. I can tuck these in, clip these off, and hand sew this opening shut. First I'll poke these corners out. Now in this triangle pouch, I'm going to use Fusible Fleece on the inside, and we'll see how much stiffer this one's going to be. Here you can see that I left the 1/2-inch seam allowance empty. I didn't do any top stitching there so that I could put together the pouch easier. And here you can see the Fusible Fleece is so thick it almost stands up by itself. Now because it is Fusible Fleece, I have zigzagged and trimmed all the seam allowances. So there you have it, we're finished. This one is made with Fusible Fleece, and it's pretty sturdy on its own. This one is made with ShapeFlex, and it doesn't really push out all the wrinkles. But if you stuff it, of course, with your possessions, it's going to fill out. So to compare the two of them, the one with Fusible Fleece and the one with ShapeFlex, which one do you like better? Which one would you want to use for your project? So if you have any questions or comments, leave them for me and I'll get back to you. And thank you for watching, and hope you subscribe and like.